What would you say is the hardest genre of video games to get into competitively? Now, obviously you can't actually answer that because you are just a Blue Yeti microphone, but if you could, I'm relatively certain that what you would say is fighting games are the worst. While it is true that fighting games are hard to learn, I don't really think they are that much worse than other genres are. MOBAs, for example, require a fuck ton of knowledge before you really get to play those games at all. And a lot of that's really finicky stuff like itemization as well, which isn't as obvious when you're making a mistake in that area, thus slowing the learning process. Battle Royales, racers, and RTS games are also similarly difficult to learn. It's just that they are all hard in different ways to fighting games. But fighting games definitely are the worst feeling genre to learn, by far. The reason they are the worst feeling is the fact that you will lose an absolutely absurd number of matches when you start learning. Having a win rate as high as 33% would be considered extremely good for a beginner. It's pretty bad. This is because there are zero buffers that new players can take advantage of when they start. When you're playing a MOBA, there's always the possibility that you will win through no fault of your own, because they are team games, and this lessens the sadness of constant losing somewhat. There's nothing like that for fighting games. They are just a 1v1 between you and the other person. There are no outside factors that can help you win a game you didn't really deserve to win, outside of the other person just having a heart attack at their computer suddenly. Multiple games have tried to do something to bring the two sides of the player base closer together, but they've all failed spectacularly. It's just how the genre is. It's simply not possible to create this kind of feature to close the gap. Why, you ask? Well, because the sweaty gamers will just be better at abusing that mechanic themselves, so in the end, nothing will have been achieved. All that ever happens when developers do try this shit is just they end up making a shallower game and turn off their hardcore players as well. It really is a miserable experience learning these games, though. I wanted to get into the genre for a really long time, and I did try multiple times, but always bounced right the fuck off of whatever game I tried to play. It's just a very demoralizing experience. All you do for like 100 hours is watch yourself get absolutely dunked on over and over and over again. It's mostly just that even a minor difference in terms of skill between the two players will usually result in a complete blowout. There are a lot of very small and nuanced things that happen in fighting games that require specific responses. If you don't know what that specific response is, then you have two options. You can either figure it out right now in 30 seconds, or get fucked harder than your mum during 2-for-1 Fridays. And even then, if you do know what you're meant to be doing in theory, it's another thing entirely to actually do it in practice. These games are known for needing at least some level of mechanical skill after all. The requirement isn't as high as some people will lead you to believe, but at the end of the day you still do need to teach your hands how to do the thing on the screen. It is a shame that there isn't really too much we can do about this issue. What we really need to be doing, instead of trying to make the games easier, is finding ways to accelerate the learning process for newer players. Fighting games have absolutely terrible tutorials in nearly every single game, if there even is a tutorial in the game at all. What they amount to is always just throwing an entire fucking textbook at you and saying, "Memorize this, bitch." I think it would help a lot if we actually did something meaningful with single-player content in these games, rather than just a basic arcade mode, which is what every game does. If there's even gameplay at all for single-player, Guilty Gear Strive's story mode has no gameplay in it. It's literally just watching a multi-hour long movie. There's no interaction. It's absurd. I like to imagine a setup with a campaign where we could do some kind of puzzle encounter. You could do something like slap the zoner in one mission and then give them an altered kit that basically means they will always be full screen, and the challenge is managing to slip through their zoning moves and hit them. I do mean in some kind of relatively scripted manner as well, where they do their set pattern and you just have to recognize the pattern to get to them, like 3 or 4 times. This sort of thing would help teach newer players some of the fundamental skills you need in a safe environment. Obviously this won't completely solve anything, but it would be a fuck lot better than what we have right now. Currently, if you're new and you don't know what to do against a zoner, you just don't get to play the video game at all while they twerk on you from full screen. That shit fucking sucks, and I'm glad I'm not at that stage anymore. So why do we do it, right? Games are meant to be fun, surely. So why exactly would you subject yourself to countless hours of suffering for something that's meant to be fun? This is a pastime after all. Well, it's complicated. You see, the things that make fighting games fun are not really obvious from an outside perspective. Most people assume the fun part is doing big combo and seeing big number. And sure, big number is fun, but it's really the underlying meta layer that keeps people coming back. What you think when you start learning is that you need to be some kind of mechanical god who has incredible reactions and flows like water. But this is not true. Multiple things are wholly unreactable, nobody is ever reacting to a jab, and anything that is difficult, mechanically, will typically have an easier but less optimal alternative that you can do instead. I'd actually say it's mostly about pattern recognition in terms of skill. There are a finite amount of situations that you can be put into in any moment, and it's really just about learning the correct responses for that. For example, right here, Baiken is in the air, which means she can only really do a few things. She could jump in and attack, which loses to anti-airs. She could do something to delay the jump timing, meaning that I would have to delay my timing as well. Or she could jump in and block, which is roughly neutral with anti-airs. Or she could backdash, which is obviously neutral again. And finally, she could just land and resume playing a grounded game instead. So, as we can see, if Baiken is jumping, I need to be ready to anti-air because that covers most of the options she can do. Now, that is an oversimplification of the situation, but I think you get the rough idea at the very least. The more time you spend learning fighting games, what you actually realize is that you're kind of just playing a game of chess that is happening at very high speeds. It's really all about knowing what your opponent is trying to do, and then you're trying to think a step or two ahead to outmaneuver them. Hell, you'll even hear players say something to the effect of, "I don't want him to take his turn," or, "Oh, I thought it was my turn there." You see, there's only really 3 states that you can be in, and you are always trying to get to one in particular. It can be neutral right now, which means that no one has the advantage. You can be attacking, which means you have the advantage. Or you can be defending, which means the opponent has the advantage. Which means that you are just always trying to get to the attacking position because that's the winning position. So what you need to think is, what is my character's win condition? What's the opponent's win condition? And then how can I maneuver in a way to get him to the position I want to be in while avoiding the risk of walking right into his win condition? This also means that you only need to worry about a few things at any one moment in time as well, depending on the game state, because if you are defending, you are obviously not having to think about what moves you would need to use in neutral or what you would need to be doing to pressure them. You are only trying to think about what their pressure will look like and how you can escape it. Similarly, if you are attacking, you are just thinking what can they try and do to get out of the pressure that I'm applying. You're again not thinking about what you need to do on neutral or defending. So it's not completely overwhelming. You don't need a million things bouncing around in your head at once, but you do need to be ready to change gears as the match flows. Now, it does take a very long time to learn all of these situations and how you are meant to respond to them as well. In fact, you will never learn all of the situations. People are learning and changing constantly, meaning the list of situations that you can be put into only grows longer and longer as time passes. But you see, it's in there that the fun actually lies. It's the fact that you are always learning and improving. Fighting games are a journey of personal mastery. It's like learning an actual fighting style in a lot of ways. It took me a very long time to get as good as I am now, like literally thousands of hours. How good am I now? Well, fortunately I have a special guest here to explain just how good I've gotten. An actual bona fide pro player. Take it away, Hitachi.
This Ramlapal player is a fucking clown.
Thanks, Hitachi. But in all seriousness, it has been an extremely rewarding experience to learn as much as I have, even if I am still a clown. The previous comment did hurt a lot at the time because it's like, yeah, he didn't even let me play the full best of 3, and of course I'm not going to be able to stand up to a pro player. I'm going to get dunked on every single match. But I would have at least liked to have the experience under my belt, you know? You only get better by playing against people who are better than you. But you know what I realized? Fuck him. Why do I care what he thinks of me? I'll likely never even play against him again. He doesn't know who I am, and he doesn't know that I exist. And why am I holding myself to his standards anyway? The only person's standards I should be holding myself to are my own standards, and god damn it, I'm still proud of how far I've come, regardless of how far I have left to go. I love fighting games because they are hard. They are fun because there is so much to learn, and there are so many choices you have to make in every single match that you play. You have to analyze your opponent and master your favorite characters, all while also needing to learn how to beat all the other characters as well. The depths seem endless, and it's because they are. While true perfection is impossible, of course, it's still rewarding to chase it, even if you'll never catch it. And you'll still make mistakes anyway, and lose to dumb shit. That's just how life is, unfortunately. You get big lows when you play a fighting game, but you also get insane highs as well. I have had experiences that no other genre could ever even dream of touching. There's nothing quite like it, when you're down to that last pixel of health, but in that moment, you ascend. Your mind clears, and you say, it's all or nothing. You see him coming, and your hands move on their own. You make the read, and the momentum shifts back to you suddenly. Despite the danger, you can't back down now. You have to push forward. Rushing forward, you know what you must do. You must perform the forbidden Oki. You can only pray that your master will forgive you for what you have done. He never saw it coming. You punish him for this mistake, but your combo does not kill him. And now it's down to the wire. If either of you takes one more hit, it's all over. But you won't let that happen. You are still focused, but the opponent is panicking. He swings wildly at you, but you stay cool. You duck and weave, biding your time. Eventually, an opening presents itself, and you strike, and you finally stop holding your breath. It's over now, and you've done it against all the odds. And that is why fighting games are worth the effort. That's what makes them so special. Thanks for watching.